Hey everyone, with the balance patch scheduled for the 10th, I wanted to share some of my thoughts on balancing and altered and my hopes for the future. Honestly, the most important thing that altered needs to do is get the unique algorithm right so that there's enough availability of key cards that players can switch decks easily. Then it wouldn't really matter as much how they handled balance changes as players could just adapt to the changes, both keeping up with the meta and feeling less devastated when their favorite hero gets nerfed. This would bring the joy that comes from experimenting with new strategies, make the competitive scene more available, and put less pressure on Equinox to get each patch perfect. But uniques are a huge topic on their own, and I want to revisit them in a later video. As for balancing, historically, Equinox has primarily balanced the game with suspensions, bans, and permanent errata to card effects. Another, less obvious way to balance is with future sets and expansions. We've definitely seen this some as a couple heroes have been pushed, but this has mostly been unsuccessful as the same heroes have fairly consistently stayed at the top each expansion, and others have seen really little play. Personally, when done right, I do think that balancing through sets is the superior way to go. It feels more natural and players respond better to this method. There's a couple points I want to discuss about how Equinox could potentially better achieve this, and then I'll follow it up with my hopes for the future. First, I think the team needs to pick a consistent power level and stick with it, or introduce rotation. When new heroes and cards are worse than their predecessors, it's not really surprising they don't see play. Many new heroes only get their ability when they go first, which doesn't mean on its own that they can't be viable, but in comparison with Kojo and Buddha, they're just much weaker. Creating an airlift, drawing a card at the cost of giving your opponent a token, or ascending an expedition are just not as strong as what's essentially a 2 mana Buddha token. And while these are heroes, the same is true for a lot of the other cards in recent sets. I really wish they could be a little more generous with the second wave of heroes and maybe just even gave them Lindua's ability to pay 1 for their effects when going second. It is possible to change the power levels in a game across expansions, like with Shock versus Lightning Bolt formats in Magic, but to do so, we need rotation so that the cards aren't all present at the same time. And I hope if we do get rotation, that they make it span enough sets, we still have a rich card pool, and that they pick a high enough power level, we can get an interesting amount of diversity in card effects. The second point is I think we need more targeted support for specific heroes and sets. If cards are all very generic, then we'll naturally have generic heroes, Sig, Tasia, Trace, Kojo, Fen, perform the best. We need cards that are powerful, but only fit in the lesser used strategies to reward players when they pull off the more challenging synergies. Stuff that benefits from controlling a token or robot in Axiom would suddenly be harder to fit into Trace, but slots well into Sierra and Subhash. Also, literally every good Muna card anchors itself. So why would you ever need to play Argent to anchor your own cards when you can boost them and get double value in Tasia? We need strong 3-drops that don't self-anchor, and thankfully we might be getting some in the next set. And for the Ascend cards, how can you expect us to play them in Zen instead of Sig when they are all self-sufficient? We really needed more cards that benefited from joining an ascended expedition or having both of your expeditions ascended instead of just ones that make an expedition ascend if they wanted to differentiate between the two heroes' playstyles. Maybe making some cards that aren't better from reserve and Axiom so you can't just jam them in every resupply deck, or make cards that benefit from other effects rolling a die in Lyra so that you can put them in Evenka would help out. If you want to make support for something like Zen or Navenka, please make cards that benefit from Ascend or rolling a dice, and not just cards that do what the heroes do, but can be run anywhere. We need synergy, not similarity. And for my third balancing thought, if we want to see more viable heroes at once, We need a higher concentration of meta cards within each set. There are so many heroes, and Equinox hasn't been able to give each of them the attention and revisit the underperforming ones at the same time. With new heroes too in each set moving forward, we'll really need to jam pack things to give them all life, especially if they don't just want them all running the same generic good cards in each faction. We switch themes every set, and most new strategies and many heroes have never gotten enough support to be good. You can't make a deck with less than 39 cards, and if a hero has a specific effect or playstyle that needs specific synergies to function, it just takes a lot of good cards before a deck can come together. We just got Zen in set 4, and there are 0 Ascend cards in set 5. Like, how does that even happen? And I won't be surprised if there are no terrain marker synergies or anything like that for Nadir either. I think one of the biggest examples of this too is for Lindua, where the hero really could be good if there was enough support, but it's just been so sparse across sets. I personally feel like significant balance changes are only really needed after the underperforming heroes have received full support and are still falling short. But until then, they're kind of just waiting for a little love or their time. Those are some of my thoughts on balance changes that I had to get off my chest. I think a lot of it is easier said than done, but I really do respect Altered and Equinox, and I hope they can continue to figure out what will be the best for this game and its player base. Let me know if you agree with any of my thoughts or if you have additional ideas in the comments. And now, considering the game exactly as it is currently, I'd like to share some hopes for balancing in the future. First, I hope we don't get another war situation, or to a lesser degree of Faunus again soon, where a popular hero or card just gets nerfed into oblivion. I do think it's good to rotate the meta, but I appreciate when you can continue to play a version of your favorite deck that hasn't completely lost its identity, even if it has to be weaker. Especially with unique cards, it's just so easy to get very attached to your favorite heroes. And while a lot of Sig, Kojo, Teja players haven't experienced this, it's kind of hard knowing your favorite deck in a form remotely close to what you remember is just never coming back. On a similar note, I hope Equinox doesn't overcorrect in this biggest patch we've ever seen that's coming in a few days. It'll be interesting to see how this comment ages, I'm sure, but one thing I've noticed is that it really looks like the team is choosing to up the power levels again in Roots of Corruption. As soon as you compete 1 feat, Gretel and Rust is literally Sigismar, and only gets stronger from there. Yongi and Sam look stronger than recent heroes too, and with some simple synergies, the corrupted cards look stronger than their original versions. And Stigma of Cowardice is just bonkers for its Sadi and Soul. Literally power creeping another card from Seeds of Unity that hasn't even been released yet. Also, Exalted cards are being introduced to support underperforming strategies in particular, and some, like Close the Breach for Akesha, seem absolutely bonkers, especially since it's essentially taking the spot of a common. I guess what I'm saying is if the balancing we need is already on the way, introducing strong new heroes and support for weaker ones, I just hope we don't overcorrect with errata and too many measures all at once. And the hero spread right now is honestly pretty good, so it'd be unfortunate if any hits result in a meta that's actually less diverse. Lastly, Equinox, please try and focus on the mid-season patch as your main patch each set, please. I think they've said this was their goal at one point, but every time it ends up having the start of season patch being this huge upset before we get cards that will shake up the meta anyway, and then in the middle of the season, they say something like, oh, there's been a lot of changes recently and we're going to hold off for now. Unless something is going to ruin the game, I just really think we can handle having fewer changes going into a set. It's much more natural and players can figure out what's good and understand why the changes are eventually made in the mid-season patch. This pattern also keeps the meta fresh at the time in the season when you actually need it the most, and it would give the team Equinox more information for the decisions they're making with actual player data. It might be a little unnatural the first time, and it's obviously not what they have planned for Seeds of Unity, but I really hope they can make this shift just once eventually, and then it'll be really easy to keep up moving forward. I know Equinox listens to us, and I hope they see my video. I see a lot of good changes already on the way, and hope the game gets enough time to reach its best version and that players will continue to give it a chance so it can grow. Am I crazy? And do you think Altered will only thrive if we never see Kojo, Sigismar, and Trace smug faces ever again? Or do you think some of my suggestions are exactly what the game needs? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.